Hello. So, guys, am I audible? Just respond in a chat box. Hello. Yep, yep. Thank you. So, sorry for inconveniency. My network connection was lost, so I'm back now. And let me share my screen, and then we'll continue. Yep. Just a minute. Yeah. And as multiple students have listed that this is the annoying sound, so ask your friends to join very soon, and then very soon I'm going to lock this meeting. Okay. So just to confirm, and only one or two students, please respond. My screen is visible and I'm audible clearly. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. A few students are suggesting me few things. Deliberately, I'm not using those things right now. I'll tell you later. I don't want to refresh my page as soon as I save, or I don't want to use any IDE right now to make you aware that you can achieve everything using a normal text. Okay, normal text editor. But just after a break, in a second part of this session, we are going to have a rich text editor um, just to make you aware how that will increase your productivity and so on. But I'll introduce you with those editors later. So yeah, back to this one. We were discussing cell padding and cell spacing. Okay. So cell padding is a space between content and border, whereas cell spacing is a space between two cells, right? And that's what the table is. Now, for you, as a takeaway task for today, is you create your timetable, your class timetable, using the table tag. So what I want you to create is let me show you that thing. Yeah, that will be somewhere on a different folder. I want you to create this thing, right? So this is something that you have seen, your class timetable. We have a heading part. We have some classroom numbers with effective date. On the left side we have a logo, and then we have entire timetable from Monday to Saturday. We have number of sessions slots, and below that we have subject list and faculty list. So what I've used here is in this subject list I've used the unordered list, and on the faculty names and faculty list we have used definition list here. So that's how you can incorporate those two things also. But here you will see few more examples like in this cell, actually all these Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all these days does have number of batches. So if I go and incorporate number of batches in a single column, then I need to merge other cells. So this Monday is call span 2. Even this AWP is call span 2. But here I do not span those columns and I have two separate columns. Somewhere maybe you have a 2-hour session. Okay, on Tuesday, let's say from 9 to 11 you have a session, then you go for the row spans here and so on. So like that way you can go for call span, row span, you can have cell padding, cell spacing wherever you require. Okay, so that's how you can create entire timetable. What you need to do is first you need to analyze how many rows and columns you'll require. Okay, so for this example, one column for serial number, one column for time, then two columns for Monday, again two columns for Tuesday, two columns for Wednesday, and so on. So there are 6 days, and 6 multiplied by 2, 12 columns. So 12, then 13 and 14. Total 14 columns I'll require here. And how many number of rows will require? So it's very simple. One header row, then session 1, 2, then break, session 3, break, and session 4. So total 6 rows we require up to this part. So then 7th row and 8th row for this subject list. So in this table, I require total 8 rows and 14 columns. And then depending on our need, we may span our cells, maybe row span or a call span, and we can achieve this entire table. Now there are multiple tables here. On this top part, I have used another table, separate table than this, and I've made border 0 there. So you actually do not realize that there is a table. Okay, and this is the second table where we have border 1 with cell spacing 0, and we do have one more table here at the end, which is again having border 0. So this is your takeaway task today. Whenever you have a time, you have your timetable PDF file. So just create HTML code and make your timetable page, web page. Just a minute, guys. Yeah, so this is what the table we have seen. So starting from today, we have seen unordered list, ordered list, and definition list with few attributes, start attribute, type attribute, and so on. And later we move towards table tag. So where we have a table tag, tr tag, okay, table tag, tr tag. For table heading, we have th tag, and normal cells, we have td tag. Along with that, we have seen caption of a table and few attributes like width of your table, border of your table, alignment, cell spacing, cell padding, and wherever you want to merge number of cells, we have call span and row span. Okay, so that was the table, and around 1 hour we have spent here. So let's have a few minutes break. Before you leave for break, um, let me share a link for your attendance. Yep. If any faculty does have that link, please share it to me, and then I'll share it to students. Remember, students, that attendance form, Google form, will be available for 10 to 15 minutes only, and later we are going to close that form responses. So it won't be accessible after after this session is completed. So make sure that that you fill that form when we share it here. Okay. Class counselors, please, if, yeah, we have it here. So let me share this link to everyone. Yep. So students, have a look at this Google form and fill that form within 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we are going to close the responses of that Google form. This will be your attendance for today's session. And once you fill that form, you may go for your refreshing time. Back in 5 minutes, we will start with forms. And before we start forms, I'll introduce you to editors. So be quick. And during that time, let me have some queries also. So yeah, Aman is asking if we want to increase the cell border than what we use. So, well, there is no option in default HTML, but you can do that thing using CSS. Okay, and we'll see that in next 2 days. Multiple students are asking for closing the sound. Okay. And few other queries were related to IDE. Look, this is not IDE, this is simple text editor, Notepad++. And Gohil Sagar was requesting me to have a meta tag for refreshing my page. I'm not going for that deliberately because I want you to focus somewhere and then I want to refresh that page so that once I save my code, it won't be directly reflected on the page. Well, we can do that with next text editor. We'll see, and few other plugins, extensions in those editors, and then I'll show you that thing also. Yeah, Raj was asking what about tea break and lunch break. So Raj, we are making call span there. It is spanning from Monday to Saturday, right? And all those days does have two columns. So 6 days, two columns. It's total 12 columns we are spanning there. So call span 12. Okay, for tea break and lunch break. Well, so those were a few, I think, queries. Hardik Chawda is also saying that I use Bootstrap in web page. Yeah, look, Bootstrap is a CSS framework kind of thing, which gives you multiple things ready to use. And on the second day of CSS, we will also look at a Bootstrap. It's a Twitter project based on CSS and JavaScript. It also gives you multiple components ready to use and very comprehensive documentation also, where you can have a look at the code, copy that code and paste it in your page and go for any of the content or components that you want there. Yeah, someone is asking for that Google form link. Let me send that one more time. If some students have not received that thing, so I've posted that Google form link again, and make sure that within 10 minutes you're going to fill that form. Later on, your class counselor is going to stop the responses. Well, make sure that you use your institute email ID only to access that form, because we are recording your email ID in the response, and you need to be logged in to your institute email ID when you access this form. Now let us have a look at few IDE or text editors which are very much useful when we go for web development. Okay, so one is Sublime Text. Okay, Sublime Text 3 or so. Then there is one is VS Code, Visual Studio Code. Then there is one Atom editor. Then there is Bricket. Okay, so these are few text editors which we can use. Sublime Text. Now these are, some of these are open to open source, and without license you can use those things. Individual usage is free. So Sublime Text is one thing. You can download that software from the official website, install it in your operating system, and then you can use it. So one is Sublime Text, another one is Visual Studio Code. Okay, one more is the Atom, right? Then there is one more, Bracket. Now when we say what is the extra benefit we have when we use these editors, so it gives you multiple things. One thing is the default look and feel of your code. It changes the color of tags, attributes, content, values, and so on. So then also it suggests you if there is any kind of misspell or kind of a error. Now, as long as this is a markup language, it is not a programming language. So we never compile, and we never have a compilation error. We directly look at the browser and we test whether everything works properly or not. But before we go for that, these editors suggests us if there is any kind of a problem, right? And it will also help us to write code very quickly. And to demonstrate that thing, now onwards, we will be using this Visual Studio Code. Okay, so let me jump in the VS Code editor, and let's quickly have a tour of that editor. So what I'll do is I'll close this thing now. We are not going to use this notepad plus plus anymore. But what we'll do is we will use this text editor. Okay. This is the VS Code, Visual Studio Code text editor. Welcome window. Let's close it. What I've done is I've opened this entire folder. So what you can do is you can right click and open with code. You can do this thing. Then your entire folder will be accessible inside your your Explorer workspace here. So that workshop folder is available here where we have day 1 and day 2. Day 2 we haven't started yet. I have directly started editing in index HTML file and resume file. So, well, what we'll do is now we'll create one more file in this day 2 and we'll work on that. So, in day 2, let me have index.html, and this is what the file we have. Okay. Now, a few more benefits of using this kind of editor is we need not to type entire boilerplate code. Now, I'll explain what is boilerplate code, but let me show you that thing. When I do exclamation mark and it gives me suggestions from Emmet abbreviation. Emmet is one extension built in this kind of editors, and if it is not there, you can side load that extension in your editor. So when I have exclamation mark and I press tab, it gives me this boilerplate code ready. So I need not to type this much code. I'll be directly typing my content here in the body section. One more, when I type only text and press tab, it is going to give me starting and ending tag ready, right? So if I want to create a div tag here, so I'll write div and then press tab, it will create starting and ending div tag for me. Similarly, let's say if I want to have table here, then I'll write table and then I press tab, it will create table tag, trn tab, tdn tab. So it will create those starting and ending tags automatically for me, right? So that's one thing. It is going to help me. Now, if I want to use few more things, we will see it later. Tomorrow we will see classes and IDs or other things. So if I want to have a division div element with let's say test class, so div is a tag dot defines test is a class. So div dot test and I press tab, it will give me div element with class equals to test. So it will increase your productivity. That's one thing. Okay. Now somewhere, let's say if I say that I'm going to have h1, this is day 2, okay, and I save this. Now later on, if I say that, oh, I don't want this to be h1, I want this to be h3, then when I change this h3, okay, starting tag of h3, it has also changed the ending tag from h1 to h3 automatically. I need not to go to ending tag and rename it also. Now that's because of some of the extensions we can use in this kind of editors. So if you go to the left panel here, you will have extensions panel, and these are the extensions I have installed in this editor in this PC right now. So auto close tag is giving me the closing tag automatically. Auto rename tag is giving me the rename functionality of starting and ending automatically. So whatever extension you require, you can search here. Let's say formatting related any kind of extension you require, you need to have internet connection when you are searching these extensions. But once you install those extensions, it is locally available. After that, you do not require internet connection. Okay, so you'll have a number of formatting, HTML formatting extensions. Well, this kind of editors may have default formatting available, so that's one thing. Let's say live SAS compiler you require, then you can also have those things. Similarly, I have a live server installed here, so it is going to give me the live server functionality, and I'll show you how that happens and all those things, right? So this is where you can install your required extensions. And what extensions are available, you can simply Google best extensions for VS Code, and then you'll have a list of those extensions which you can install and you can use those things. So coming back to this Explorer where we have our folder, okay, I can hide that Explorer part if I don't want it. We have a small map of our entire file on the right side. From where you can even scroll that thing, your entire file, and other things, the main menu and all those things available. And your open files will be listed in open editors here, right? So let me hide this Explorer right now. Let us have this this thing, and yeah, let's load this file. Let me close this day1 on, and in this day2 we have this index, and right click that thing and go for open with live server. Look, if you look at below your editor, on the bottom right part, there is one more thing, go live button. If you click here, then also it will start the server, or else what you can do is right click on your file and open with live server. So it is going to open that file in a server. Now it is going to create a default server for you. Now let us have it side by side. So we have a side by side panel. Yep. So this is day2 with H3, and it is live. Right now it is live. So when I change this thing and save my file, it will directly reflect in the live server result. So this is H3. When I save this file, it will reflect on the live server page. So that's how I need not to have meta tag to refresh my page. A live server is very much useful extension in this kind of editors. Okay. So this is what the page we are working on, and this is the code side by side with some editor. Let me again list all those editors if you want to check it out. Sublime Text, Visual Studio Code, Atom, Brackets. Now these are few editors. These are not the final list, but these are few editors which you can use. I'm going for VS Code here. So now we'll be working on VS Code. Let me increase somewhat a font size so everyone can have a look at code properly. And let's go for the next topic, which is forms. So today we want to work on form now. So there is a form tag which creates a form for you, where you can create as many number of fields you require to take input from user. So whenever we want to take an input from user, we create a form where user will input something and submit that form, Then, yeah, this is the router for GTU final year examination. Okay, let's start. Let's get back to the form. So when we want to use a form, we use form tag. I'll come back to action attribute later. So we create a form using form tag, and in between this form, we can define as many fields as we want. So let's say I want to have a name, or let's say username of user, and I want, let's say we are creating a login form right now. So then we require password. Okay. Now these two are just label. So what we can do is we can have a label tag, and between this label paired tag, we can have that label. Similarly, this is the second label, and we can have this label inside the label tag. Now after this username label, if I save this thing, then we'll have a normal text here. Okay, username and password. What exactly we want is we want to have one text field here where user can type that text. So for that, we have input tag. Okay, we have input tag. Now when I say input and then I define type equals to text, okay, type equals to text, then it will create one input field where we can type text. So this is what the default look and feel of input field, text input field, where user can click and then user can type anything, right? So that is input field. If you want to have a new line here, then definitely you can use br tag to create a new line. And similarly, I can create one more input type text, then I'll have a text for password. But that's not proper actually, because someone types a password and then it should be masked. It should not display the text. And that's the reason we have input type. Instead of text, we have input type password. So when we say input type password, then it will be masked. When we type something in a password field, it is going to mask that text. Okay. So we have seen very basic input fields. Now what if you want to submit this form? Then there is one way you can have input submit. So input type submit, and as a value you can say whatever you want to display on that button. So we say, let's say we say login button. Then we'll have a login button here. Okay. Now if you right now, when you do not know how to write CSS, right now if you want to formalize and format this thing properly, then what you can do is you can create a table. Very quickly, let me create one table just to show you how you can structureize your thing. Later on, we won't be using table here. So I want one row with two columns, then another row and third row. So I require three rows. On first row, first column, I go for label. And in the second column, I have input field. Then second row, first column, I'll say there is a label. And second column, field. Third row, second column, I'm going to have my input button. Right? So very quickly, we have structurized our form. And now everything is properly aligned. Okay? So that's how table will help you to have a proper structure on the page. Now, on a label, you have four attributes. So how do we, what is the need of this for attribute and how it helps us? So right now, if I click on this label, nothing is happening, right? But if I say that when user clicks on this label, I want this to be focused. And to have that functionality, we have this for attribute. And to use that for attribute, we need to have some identifier. Okay, so this username label is for this input field. To identify this input field, we have one ID attribute. ID, let's say uname. Now this is a user defined identifier. You can write anything. Make sure it follows all the identifier rules, no space in between and other, right? So if I say ID uname, then I'm going to use this ID in for attribute here. And let's save this thing. So now if I click on username, by default it will focus this input field. So right now it is not focused one, but when I click or when I hover on that label, it is going to highlight that input field. And if I click there, it gets focused here. So that's what the for attribute is for. So we can have, let's say, ID equals to PWD, and we can have that PWD for attribute here, and same thing will happen on password, right? Now when we submit this form, now when it gets submitted, when I click on this input type submit, now instead of input type submit, you can also have button. Okay, button, and login is the text. No change on the look and feel. It is same. If I refresh this page, still it is same button login. But if I click here, nothing happens. Okay. Now we can give a type here. Type submit, and it works as a form submit event. Okay. Now we'll see what happens when we submit this form and what happens there. So this button or input type submit is going to submit this form. What do you mean by submitting a form? Your browser will take all the content from these input fields, so value of these input fields, and it is going to send those values to the server. So your browser is responsible to get everything whatever user has given, and it is going to transfer those data to the server when we submit this form. Now form will have few more attributes. One is the method. Okay, one is the method, and method can be two ways. One is the get method. For you right now it is two different methods, get and post, but there are few more methods available which you will learn in 6th semester or so. One is the get method. Get method is going to display your content in the URL. Okay, so when I say there is a get method, I'm following my form to follow the get method, and if I type something here, and when I submit this form, okay, then it will let me open this thing in a Chrome window. Actually, I'm pretty much comfortable with Chrome, not Mozilla right now. Okay, and when I submit this thing, this is it is actually going to append everything on the after this question mark. I'll show you once we discuss this action also, because right now I have defined action and there is nothing. So let's say action is hash. We don't, what is action? When we define action, it is going to redirect your user After submitting this form, it is going to redirect your user to this location. Okay, this location, it is going to do that thing. So right now I'm not redirecting anywhere. And so we have hash here. Oh, we haven't defined any name still. Browser is not able to submit your data because you haven't given any name to this input fields. So browser requires name attribute also. So this is uname and this one is the PWD. Let's say it requires name attribute to submit your data. Remember, okay? And now we will see that thing. Okay, so this is what we see when we have a method get. It is going to append all those data given by user in URL. So uname is Tejas, PWD is Chauhan. Well, definitely when you are using password, we must not go for get method. Otherwise, your password will be displayed on the URL, and that's the reason we have next method. Instead of get, we have post method. Okay, so if I have a post method, and then if I do something and submit, it will redirect me to the next hash page, which is not available right now, but it won't display that thing on the URL. Okay, so that's what the post method. Now get method will append your data in URL and then send. Post method will append your data in a packet when it sends the data to server. It won't be displayed on the browser URL. So that's one difference. And at this place, action, if I say that once user has submitted this form, I want my user to be redirected to some other page. Let's say google.com. Then when I submit this thing, it will redirect me to the Google page. Okay, fine. So that's what happens when we submit this form. Generally what we do is when user login form is successfully submitted. Now how do we say successfully submitted? We go and we test this user credentials. So to test those user credentials, we have written some code in a different page. So this action page will be pointing to that different page instead of hash. Okay, so that's what the action attribute is. Now going back to the input fields here, let us quickly see the available input fields. There are number of input fields available. Now I'm not going for table, tr and td. Very quickly let's have we have one input field text. Okay, input colon and t, then I'll say there is input field text available. Okay, so we have input field text, which allows me to input simple text. Then there is input type password, we have already seen. There is input type email. Okay, so input type email is available. So it's very simple input type. But if I type something which is not in the form of email, and if I submit my form, my browser is going to give me this kind of notification. Please include @ sign in the email address. ASDF is missing @ sign. So that's what the behavior of having type equals to email. Okay. Then I'm going to show you a few. You can search on net or go for Mozilla Developer Network (MDN) website, where you will have a very good documentation of all these HTML and CSS content. So input type email is there. Then we have input type number. Okay, so when you hover on that field number, it gives you this up and down arrow to have your number. And if you type any text there, it won't allow you to enter any character alphabet. You will only be able to enter numbers. Okay, and this up and down arrow will also give you those functionalities for numbers, increasing and decreasing those numbers. So that's input type number. Then we may have input type date. Okay, so this is how your input field for date will look like: dd mm yy. And when you click on this calendar icon, it gives you the entire calendar, from where you can select any date, and it will be in the form of dd mm yy. You can change the format of that date later on if you require. You can define a format for this thing. So there is a date, there is time also. Input type time. So this is how it looks, and it allows you to select any time field, right? Now if you want date and time both at the same time, then you may go for input date time local. Look, date time is also available, but that has been deprecated now. So you go for date time local, and this is how it will look. Okay, date time. And in the single form, single input field, you will have date as well as time. And if you click on this calendar icon, on the left side you'll have this date calendar, and on the right side you can select time. So that will be submitted to the server. If you say you only want let's say month, then there is input field month available. So here you can select any month from the calendar. For 2021 June month, I'm selecting here. So there is a month is available. Current week in a current year is also available for you. Input type week. So that gives you the week number, which week you are selecting, right? So this is just a third week of this 2021 year, and so on. Yeah, so you can select any particular week from year. So that's also available there. Then let's say if you want your user to upload a file, then there is a input type file available. So when you have an input type file, it will allow you to choose a file from your local PC. So when you click on this button, it will give you the option to select any file to upload, and you can upload any file from this thing. Let's say there are no pictures. Okay, anything that's let's say you want to upload one image from our workshop images. Let's say I want to upload this user photo, and I select it. It will show me user photo.jpg has been selected. It has not been submitted yet, but it has been selected. So that is input type file. If you click it one more time, then it will allow you to select another file. So that is input type file. How to handle file uploads, that you will learn when you see server side coding. Right now it's not possible. Okay, then we may have let's say search field. If I say that I want to have input type search, then it is going to give me a search bar like this one. Now it is normal text field, but when I write something, it gives me this cross icon to clear this field, right? Okay, clear that field. So that's input type search. We have some other inputs, like let's say if I want to select color, then there is a input field for color available, which will give you this option to select any color from the color palette, or not actually the palette, but color selection. And here by default you have RGB numbers of a color intensity, but you can change that to HSL hex code. This is what we have used till now. RGB we will see in CSS, right? So this value will be submitted to the server when we submit this form. Then there is a range which actually creates a slider for you. Okay, so it creates a slider. Input type range will create a slider for you. Minimum, by default minimum will be 0 and maximum will be 100, but you can change that range with attributes defining in the input type range, right? Then you can go for URL, you can go for telephone. One most important thing that you will require right now, you might not require search, color, range, month, date right now, but what you will require here is you will require a radio button and a checkbox. So a checkbox is something like we define a checkbox, sorry, where we say that accept all points or whatever. We make our user to agree with something. So this is a checkbox. Okay, input type checkbox. And another thing that you will require later is the radio button. Now generally we require it for gender, right? And that is how the input radio is what you can use here. So input type radio. Now this is for, let's say, male. Okay, so gender and then male, and this is the radio button. Now here you need to be careful when you are creating number of radio buttons. So for gender selection, let's say I create two radio buttons, one for male and second one for female. Then we will have two radio buttons here, but both are not linked together. Right now both are selectable. Now to make it linked to each other, to make it in a single group, make sure that you give it a same name. Both these radio buttons must have same name. Now when you give it the same name, then it will be grouped together, and after that you will be able to select only one from this. Okay, so if I select male, female will be deselected. If I select female, male will be deselected, and it works in a group now. And if I want to click on a text, this female or male text, and I want this radio button to work properly, then definitely we can go for label, right? So here I'll create this this male as a label. Okay, and I'll put this male text in between label, and I'll give it ID. and I'll use this ID in the label for attribute. So this will be female, and we create a label here where we use this ID and we keep this text in between label. Then it will work. So if I click on this female now, it is going to select this radio button, and when I click on male, it is going to select this radio button. So that's input type radio, where we have a radio button. We do have multiple options, but we want user to select only one. Then we can use this radio buttons. If we want user to select multiple options, we can have a check boxes, right? So these are few input fields. We have seen input tag with different type text, type email, type search, type radio, type checkbox, and so on. So I want you to show few more options here. Let's say if you want to have a drop down menu, then what you can do is you can go for select tag, and inside select you can create number of options. So this is my option 1, and we can create more than one option. So when I save, I'll have that drop down list here. Okay, so we may select any one option from this thing. Now if you want your user to be able to select multiple options from this, then you need to have multiple attribute in select. Then this is how it looks, and when I press control and select another thing, it will allow me to select multiple options from this thing. So that's the drop down list. Okay, then maybe let's have a filled set. Let's say I want to cover this thing in one filled set. Okay, so I'll start filled set tag. Inside that filled set, I'll have this entire table. Then you will have this kind of a border here, which defines this is one section. Okay, and you can have a legend to have this kind of title on that filled set. Okay, legend to have this kind of a title for that section. So that is filled set and legend you can apply there. Well, so these are the few form options where we can have number of input fields, different types of input fields, or drop down list, and so on, right? So you can create any kind of form now, and when we submit this entire form, everything is going to be submitted to the server. Now right now we do not have anything at a server side, so we won't be able to perform any task on this data, but this is how you can create form if you want. So it's also time to conclude this session, so I'll stop here. Today we have seen unordered list, ordered list, definition list, table tag, and a form with number of input fields and few other options. Let me quickly go through some chat here. Okay, and then we'll conclude this session also. So Kinjal is asking in yesterday's topic, where it is, how can we change the color in each word? Is it possible or not? Well, yesterday also I clarified this thing. It is possible using font tag, but font tag has been deprecated now. If you want to do that thing, then you should go for CSS, and that thing we will learn tomorrow. Look, VS Code, Rahul is asking, can I run HTML in VS Code? Look, HTML is not a programming language or scripting language which you need to run. HTML is just a markup language which will be interpreted, okay, by the browser. So we open the same file in browser and we will have the final output. Yeah, Gohil Sagar. Okay, Sagar is asking, what if I want to have a button, something like, and when I click on that button, I want to show that password or hide that password. Now that can be done using JavaScript. Based on JavaScript, you change the type of your input field, and then your password will be masked or it will be shown to the user. Okay. Atir is asking what is meta cache 8. Now it's a metadata related to your page. So it defines the character set which is being used in this entire file. So encoding type of that character set is UTF-8. This is encoding type. Okay. Then there is one more meta name viewport. So that defines a viewport, whatever width and height of our viewport is. So width is the device width and so on. Initial scaling is 1. Scaling is applied there. We will be looking at this meta name viewport when we work with CSS media queries. Okay. Then label 4. So label 4 equals to, and in between double quote you should write ID of your element. Yeah, every day we are recording our lectures. We are uploading it to the second year YouTube channel, and you can find all those videos in your student login and go for the lecture videos section. Then few more queries. What is the shortcut for copying line downwards? Um, Control C and Control V, simple way. Need not to select that entire line in VS Code. If you are using Notepad++, then Control D will copy the same line downward. Lecture is being recorded. Yeah, yes, lecture is being recorded, and you will have this recording later on. If we want that whoever is filling this form, I will get he or she details. Show. Yeah, Shivanand, when you create this form and any user will fill this form and submit this form, all those data will be sent to the server. Look, I'm saying sent to the server. Now, as long as we are not working on a server side right now, so we won't be able to perform any task on that data. But you will be in a position to access all those data using name, whatever name we have used here. Okay, the name like uname. Using uname, you will be able to access this data. Using pwd, you will be able to access your user's password also at a server side. Navigate the index HTML file. Look, once we complete this entire workshop, I'm going to pass on this entire workshop folder to your CC, and you can have that folder from that person. Okay. Right now, I'm not giving you this file because I don't want anyone to directly copy and paste. I want you to practice first. Href. What do you mean by href? Where do you see href? I'm going to explain href later. In anchor tag, we have href hyper reference. Okay. Anchor tag, yesterday we have seen that href. Yeah, Krish is saying, thank you for teaching these many things. Flourish with website which I have built on JavaScript HTML. Mm, yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you, Krish. Still, we are on a path of learning few more things, CSS also. Next 2 days is for CSS, and afterwards we will also spend few 2 days on JavaScript also. I'm going to show you few frameworks and plugins for JavaScript. Well, it's time. So thank you all. Thank you everyone. And we'll also cover a few queries tomorrow before we start the session. Okay. Thank you everyone, and thank you for joining in this session. You may leave this meeting now, and hope to see you tomorrow on the same time, 9 o'clock morning. Thank you.